Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 166, recording on Tuesday, May 12th. Thank you guys for being here. Going to do our early in the week Q&A type of format, which I always enjoy. This is the week of the NFL's highly anticipated schedule release, which we will talk about over the course of this show. Also get into a ton of subjects: GM situation, quarterback competition, rookies who might play a lot in 2026, all of that and more from you guys. Questions, which we always appreciate. If you're new here and you don't know about me, I cover the Vikings for The Athletic on a daily basis, do multiple stories a week in journalism format, and then we've had this show now for close to a couple years where we record twice a week, and then you can find it wherever you get your podcast. On YouTube, we love if you watch there. You can hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube right now, and then if you are listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart, please follow us, please rate, please review, give us some stars. All of that stuff helps us out. But just like any podcast, I had to jump in, and be one of the 5 billion people across this world that has a podcast underneath their name, and we've had a blast doing it. It's given me a direct conversation with you guys, which I always enjoy. This show is presented by First Resource Bank. If you guys don't know about it, you should. It is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area, run by really good people. Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson. I had an email conversation this morning with Christy, who really is at your service for all of your banking needs. She has worked in the Washington location for some time. And I needed something to, quick banking, direct deposit type of format. And she got it to me in about 5 minutes, which I really appreciated. But First Resource, they care about the community. They are Vikings fans just like you guys. And they've got branches all over the place and a phenomenal online banking platform. So we thank them for their support. Also have gotten to work together of late with ProMN Athletics. So I'm always fascinated by the people in this specific place that care about football, that care about youth football development. And I have not found people who are more just committed to lifting the tide of youth football in Minnesota, of development of youth football in Minnesota. It was started by 3 guys, Graham, Kurt, and Tanner. They've got 7-on-7 leagues in the summer. For kids who love all sorts of positions, they want to play all sorts of positions. They also have spring, fall, winter academies where it is just one-on-one development and coaching. And so if you've got kids or know of friends who have kids who want to be as good as possible at playing this game that we all love, highly recommend checking out ProMN. Their information is in the description below. All right, let's not waste anytime. I'm going to hop right into questions that I fielded from you guys on social media on Tuesday afternoon. And the first question comes from Cade Delisle, who asks, how many and which rookies do you anticipate having impact roles early in the season? And how many and which rookies will have impact roles this season and in general? So I would say this. I will set the over-under on early impact roles at 4.5, and I'll explain that in a second. But I'll just describe what I viewed as early impact roles. For me, that was major, considerable amount of snaps on offense or defense. So special teams, while I care about it immensely, and while I understand that it is probably not the sexiest podcast conversation for you guys, it matters to me. It's just not how I categorized early impact roles for this specific answer. So, Kate, the over/under would be 4.5, and I've got 5 guys who I think could make a meaningful impact early on offense and defense. Caleb Banks, obviously, the health is the most important consideration here. But if things continue to track the way that they sound like they are tracking, I am not going to be surprised if early on in training camp, Caleb Banks is on the field and starting to mix in with some of the major groups. I'm just not. So he's the name that I'll start with there. The next would be Dominique Orange at nose tackle. The Vikings of Brian Flores tend to like playing with these 5-down-ish fronts. And so if that's the case, they're going to need a nose tackle type, and Dominique Orange was drafted in the 3rd round to be that type of player. Now, he's going to have to show consistency every day. There's going to have to be some development, which is incumbent upon the coaching staff, but he's one of the 5 names that I'll mention. The next is Jacoby Thomas, the safety from Miami. I really think, if I'm making a list of early impact guys, he's probably at or right near the top just because of the depth that currently exists in the safety room, in the back end. I mean, you've got Josh Metellus, you've got Theo Jackson, you've got Jay Ward, but the Vikings are going to need, depending on what happens with Harrison Smith, and even if Harrison Smith does play in 2026, the Vikings are going to need somebody and multiple people to accumulate a bunch of snaps on the back end. And so Jacoby Thomas would be another name that I bring up there. Number 4 out of the 5 would be Damon Claiborne, the running back picked in the 6th round out of Wake Forest. I finally, on Monday afternoon, got on the horn with Katie Basin, who is I believe the director of player personnel at Wake Forest and kind of their NFL liaison. And we talked a lot about Damon Claiborne, and one of the things she discussed was just how competitive this dude is, how much, when he is in an environment that supports him the way that he probably wants and he probably needs, how much of an impact he can make. So, I mean, I'd say Damon Claiborne, just to have that change of pace style of runner with that home run hitting ability, it's hard for me to rule that out as long as he comes along from can he do all the duties that Kevin O'Connell expects with his offense and with his running backs? Can he work within the pass protection priority that this offense does put on that position? Those are going to be the hurdles for him, but I would include him in this 5. And then Max Bredesen, who, is obviously a fullback tight end type. The league has trended toward more bigger bodies. I would expect the Vikings, with the addition and inclusion of Frank Smith, their assistant head coach, to come along with that trend in many ways. So those are the 5 who I think could vie for early impact on offense and defense: Caleb Banks, Dominique Orange, Jacoby Thomas, Damon Claiborne, Max Bredesen. Now, if there's an injury, a tackle, or something goes on there, Caleb Tiernan's obviously in the mix with Ryan Vandemark, the ERFA. I'd say if there's a cornerback injury, which tends to kind of happen throughout training camp. I mean, last year was Jeff Okudah. The year before was Mekhi Blackman. Then Chuck Demings gets closer probably to vying for a spot. Perhaps Gavin Gerhardt, the 7th round center, just really impresses on the field come the summer and the fall. And then, Jake Golday, I think he is more of, I expect him to be dominant on special teams. I also think in the event of injury, he is next man up. But because of what is possible for him in terms of off-ball role, on-ball role, Swiss Army knife, Van Ginkelish type role, I just think it might. Now, it sounds like he's really intelligent in terms of being able to pick up a system, but it just for all of the jobs that he might have to learn to be the player that the Vikings think he can be, which is a really lofty player, it just might take a little more time. So that's why he's not included. But hopefully that gives you kind of an idea, Cade. And I'd expect throughout this year a lot of these guys to contribute. Tackle injuries happen. You're probably going to need Caleb Tiernan. Maybe the Vikings lean into more jumbo package sets with offensive linemen. That provides another path and avenue for that to be the case. I mean, like the cornerback injuries, again, it does happen. Blake Cashman has suffered injuries in previous years, and if there's additional ones in 2026, you might need Jake Goldie more than it seems right now. So, I'm just not going to be surprised if a lot of these guys, as is necessary, mix in early and mix in and make an impact. That's just kind of that's how I view it. Next question, fun one, comes from Douglas McClure, who we appreciate, just like Cade, Delisle. They're always listening. They're always tossing along questions. And like I say that, but like, frankly, for me in doing this show, so much of what is fun is I see these consistent names. You guys get to ask questions. Hopefully I answer them in a way that provides you, or that makes you feel like you've got a good handle on this team. Like, that is the fun part of this show. That's what I love as part of the job. So keep asking and I'll keep answering. That's for sure. Douglas asks, what road games are you looking forward to this season? So this is in many ways a preview of the conversation we will have in the immediate reaction Thursday on your podcast feeds, YouTube feeds, Thursday night when the schedule is released. But I'll just start by, for those of you who, you've been focused on the Wild playoff run, man, that was a brutal game Monday night. I was shaking my head. I was having a hard time. Our marketing director was getting frustrated that I didn't recognize this is how Minnesota sports go, but it was agonizing. And if you've been paying attention to the Wolves game, maybe you're like, yeah, who do the Vikings play on the road in 2026? Well, I don't know the order of yet, but I do know the opponent. So on the road, the Vikings are projected to play the New Orleans Saints, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the New England Patriots, the San Francisco 49ers, and the New York Jets. So you get a trip to New Orleans, to Tampa, to New England, and to San Francisco potentially, to New York. And so I'll give that answer. Before I do, just because we're on the subject, at home, the Vikings are going to get, I should also include the NFC North opponents. That's the obvious for me. At home, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Commanders, and the Colts. So, like, you can imagine that Vikings-Bills home game being a prime time slate game. And I don't know. I'm not speaking with any intel here. I would just have to imagine that game at US Bank Stadium is going to occupy. There's a lot to like, a lot of television, made for television style of that specific game. But I'm sure Thursday night I'll mention this, but the idea of the Vikings at home with that defensive home, that crowd, the defense active against Josh Allen. I mean, how could you not start to get a little goosebumps, even though we probably need a lot of relaxation to get ready for the type of game like that. But anyway, to the initial question, Douglas, which road games am I looking forward to? So there's three. New Orleans, if the game is indeed in New Orleans, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. It's one of the best food cities in the country, in my opinion, and I am a big foodie, as anyone who listens, who knows me knows. I can get after it. New Orleans, I mean, there are some legendary spots that when I've been down there that I love. Mother's Restaurant, Portical Burgers, like there is, Camellia Grill. Like that's a dangerous trip. That's also a thank you Athletic for the budget type of trip from a food perspective. So that would be one. The 49ers matchup is interesting to me in a lot of different ways. If it is indeed in San Francisco, I've never been to the Bay Area, so that's intriguing. But you've got Kyle Shanahan. I'll just say this. The New Orleans is strictly personal, getting to go eat good food. and be in that city. 49ers, you got the personal, but you also got Kyle Shanahan and that offense against Brian Flores. I mean, the last time they came up here, the 49ers, and played in Minnesota, I think Brock Purdy threw 2 or 3 interceptions. So that matchup, again, will be pretty fun and fascinating. And then, again, if it's in the Bay Area, great. If it's somewhere else, we'll have a good time with that too. So, and then the third choice, and again, there's no intel with that. It's just lobbing it out there. You read as many tea leaves as you can, but we shall see. And then the third is just the Bears in Chicago. For some reason, and maybe you guys disagree, and if you do, tell me in the comments, tell me on social media, but I just think I'm going to find these Ben Johnson, Kevin O'Connell, Ben Johnson offense against Brian Flores defense, Caleb Williams against it. I think I'm just going to find that team really interesting and these games really interesting. And then for Chicago, the personal side, I went to the University of Missouri. A lot of my college buddies live there, and so it's an opportunity to catch up and have a good time out there with that crew. So those would be the 3, Douglas, that come to my mind as I first take a look at it. New Orleans, Brandon Staley, Kevin O'Connell, close friends. That defense should be, from a schematic standpoint, pretty interesting. And then the 49ers away game, and then the Bears in Chicago. So that's where I'll go with that one. Next question comes from at Tortured MN Fan 31. I mean, I see these handles. One of these days, the team just has to win here, and so it just can no longer be tortured. I feel for you guys. I really do. I've said that for years. I've tried to maintain the optimism. It can be tough. It really can. MN Sports Fan at Tortured MN Fan 31. I'm really hoping Rob doesn't get the job, this person says. But my question to you is, how important do you think it is to hire an outside GM who can evaluate this whole operation objectively? So the way I'm going to answer this question is, I mean, it's maybe not direct to the question you're asking, but I think in this current situation, with where the Vikings are, coming off of the 25 season, coming off of hiring Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, extended Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, hiring Kevin O'Connell, extending Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores hire, extend Brian Flores, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah gets fired late in the cycle. The whole process is delayed till after the draft. Then the GM search process began really in full on Monday. I think it isn't this new GM hire, whether it's Rob Brzezinski or someone else's job, to evaluate things objectively. That will be part of their revamping, the reshaping of this thing go into the future. So don't miss me, or don't misconstrue how I'm going to talk about this. But I think it is more than anything, and more than the responsibility of anybody, this is a time where it is ownership's job to evaluate all areas of their organization. Football side, football processes, football decision-making structure, business side, who they're listening to, why they're listening to them, how engaged it. It is ownership's responsibility in this specific moment, in my opinion, to evaluate things objectively, to then chart the path to where you don't find yourself back in this specific type of situation. And it is their responsibility in this situation to then fill this job or reshape the structure in a way that can steer the ship in the right direction. And so the buck stops there, in my opinion. And this ownership has done a heck of a job. They receive high marks from the players every single year in surveys, and all of that stuff is valid because the way they treat their people, the way they treat players, the investments that they made both on the football side, on the business side, all of that it is a high mark among the NFL. And when you talk to people throughout the league, they are praised and they are admired for the job that they've done. But as part of their responsibility, it is to be engaged enough in what is going on and the structure and the vibe and the feel in the building on a day-to-day basis to get it right in terms of what the process for decision making and who is involved in that process is going to be moving forward. And so like I view this question as ownership's responsibility, so that whoever is hired, whether it's Rob Brzezinski with a personnel addendum, whether it's Rob Brzezinski elevated in a personnel hire as a GM, so that they have a clear path to making this thing work in a better way than it's worked in recent years. So I hope that answers the question, but that's a lot how I've thought about where the Vikings are right now. Next question comes from Bryce T, who asks, does JJ think steel toe is 2 words or 1? # program password. That is obviously a snapshot at how poor my playoff appearance in the program password was on Tuesday afternoon on KFAN. If you're not familiar, Common Man Dan Cole and his program, they do a little game called Program Password, and it went atrocious. My partner for the playoffs was Mike Mussman, phenomenal guy. I talk to him every Sunday during the seasons to preview the NFL Vikings games that you guys care a lot about. And we didn't have the report on the mic on Program Password, so it's on me. There was a reply to that by what's the string count of their linens? Yeah, I couldn't think of string. It was a really, really poor performance. I expected better out of myself. And I vow next year in the Program Password Invitational to bring my best. That is for sure. Next question comes from Seth Meitzel. Might be Mitzel, but at Skull Meitzel. Do the Vikings have interest in bringing in another edge? He suggests Bosa or Clowney. So I have not asked the question of if the Vikings are currently in the market for another edge rusher. I would say that right now, if I look at the roster, it is a massive hole. I mean, you've got Dallas Turner, who the Vikings hope, and I think you guys obviously hope continues the ascent that he showed toward the back half of last season. And then Andrew Van Ginkel, who is absolutely exceptional as a player and, almost like the skeleton key of what the Vikings do and want to do defensively. But he's dealt with injuries in the past. I mean, last year, I believe he missed at least 5 games with a neck injury / concussion. And so behind those guys, you've got undrafted signings from years past in Bo Richter and Chaz Chambliss and Tyler Batty. And so with the potential for injury from that position, and just the importance of those positions in Brian Flores' defense, the odds that the Vikings or the need, you could say, that the Vikings have to supplement that spot with talent is just undeniable. And it's like, I mean, it pops at you like, you go to the eye doctor, you stick I go a lot. You can look at me with the glass that I wear every day. You stick your chin on that little thing and they spray air at you. I mean, that's like how the edge rusher spot feels to me right now in terms of how obvious of a need it is. So, I do like the idea of Jadeveon Clowney. And again, this is with no intel. I've not had any conversation, but to play that rush in type spot that Jonathan Grenard played, that Dallas Turner fits best at. I mean, I remember watching the Cowboys defensive film before the Sunday Night Football game last year and thinking like, Clowney's still got some juice to him. So, it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, the Vikings do at that spot. And if they don't, it's going to be a position and an area where if it's a guy suffers an injury and the Vikings have to adapt, in hindsight, it's not going to be, or with hindsight, it's not going to be something where you're playing revisionist history of believing that is a need on this team. Great question here from at Boogeyman 2008, and someone else asked a similar question. But it said, what insight can you provide on the QB1 competition? So there's been a lot of talk about this, and I guess, we will probably talk about it continuously over the next few months. And while it might get exhausting for you guys, it might get exhausting for me, I would say that, this boils down to a couple things. Kyler Murray would not have signed with the Minnesota Vikings if he didn't feel like there was a real great opportunity for him to enter the building, earn respect, produce in practice, and gel with the offense and Kevin O'Connell, and then potentially start games and start to transform the narratives around his career. So that's abundantly clear. The other component is Kyler Murray is a two-time Pro Bowler. He started 87 NFL games, and J.J. McCarthy has started 10 games, and obviously had an up and down rookie season. So if you, the easiest way I know how to say it is if you handed somebody on the street a blind comparison of these two guys, and you just listed the numbers, the production, the history, anybody in their right mind would point to the side of the guy who's made 87 starts, 2 Pro Bowls, and thrown, I believe, close to, if not 4,000 yards multiple times. So that's where I'll start. Now, why is there so much, you guys are probably asking, well, then why is there so much conversation about this being a competition? For me, it's pretty simple. The best way at any position, in any component of life, to bring the best out of people is to have them work towards something. It's critical. It's a critical component. Like I've said this all the time, or I tell people this all the time. Because I work at The Athletic alongside John Krasinski and Michael Russo and all of our other staff beyond Minnesota, like there is a certain standard that you are striving to, for as much for yourself as like, this is the standard that is expected for someone in my type of position. And so not that it's not obviously an apples to apples comparison, but how the Vikings are framing this, phrasing it, from my perspective, is let's bring the best out of every player in that room. And by extension, them giving their best will lift the tide for the rest of the team, the rest of the offense, the rest of the organization, etc. And so if you get the best out of Kyler Murray, that's going to be phenomenal. If you get the best out of J.J. McCarthy, that's going to behoove the organization, whether he's the backup in the season, whether he's starting games because of an injury. Like, you just want to, like, I think Kevin O'Connell views the quarterback position as one where competition is healthy and that can bring the best out of the talent in that room. And so I think that's why they framed it the way they have. I think that's why it will continue to be framed that way. And but I would say, but there's no question that one of these quarterbacks has certain credentials and another has other credentials, and it's pretty, from any blind, contest or test, it's not, I mean, there's just a wide discrepancy there. And so that speaks to the hill, obviously, that J.J. McCarthy will have to climb. And if the competition gets the best out of him to the point that he looks like an entirely transformed player on the field, the footwork is really sharp, he applies touch to the football consistently, he is, really sharp in terms of in and out of the huddle with the play calls, he shows up to the building every day consistently and with a heightened and amplified level of, I would just say, the way he carries himself, then who knows where it lands. But that's why all of that has existed, and I hope that provides you guys a perspective. Let's see. Next question comes from Javon Stewart at YoungYay619. Based on what you're hearing, does this GM search feel more like the Vikings trying to find the best evaluator, the best collaborator with Kevin O'Connell, or someone capable of reshaping the organization's identity over the next 5 to 10 years? Probably the cop-out answer to that would just be that I think it's a blend of a lot of those. I do think finding someone with evaluation chops is important to them. I do think finding someone who will work hand in hand and efficiently and effectively with Kevin O'Connell is a critical component. And I do think someone who has a vision for where this organization is and where they can go and how to lead the organization on the path to that spot is part of what this ownership is looking for. I mean, they've phrased it as wanting to find a leader. And I think underneath that umbrella is a lot of the things that you mentioned there. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about the GM situation. I just think there's a lot of ways you can go about this and reach the most advantageous situation, whether it's simply naming Rob Brzezinski the GM and adding personnel experience alongside him that can garner the respect of the coaching staff within the building. I think there's a path of Rob Brzezinski in more of the presidential type role where he has the direct line of communication with ownership, understands what they want from their vision, and can also communicate to ownership directly what is ongoing in the building every day. And then you have a GM who can kind of orchestrate some of the protocols in place for scouting, for evaluation. What are the grading scales? What are we looking for? What relationships do we have? All of that stuff. I think there's a lot of ways to go about it to reach that resolution, but there's no question that the Vikings want to get this. The Vikings ownership is looking for a path to where this front office and this coaching staff have a ton of mutual respect, see eye to eye, and get to a place that obviously it was not able to get to toward the end of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's time here as the GM. Let's do one more. Or two more, why not? I'll make them quick. At Astro Gardner, if the top 5 wide receiver slots are taken and the Vikings keep 6, who's a better fit, Dylan Bell or Shalik Knotts, or whoever you have in mind? Shalik Knotts was an undrafted signing out of Maryland. I will say I saw him walk off the practice field during rookie minicamp on Friday. Don't know the severity of that injury or whether it was just minor at all, but that did stand out to me. Dylan Bell probably would be the pick just because he played at Georgia. He's really versatile. You can hand him the ball. Just seems kind of like an untapped talent. Now he borders on is he 2 positionless, but that's probably the name I'd give you. And then the last one, Shane Hoffman, with or without Harrison Smith. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how the safety room plays out, not only the starters, but the depth chart. I really like Jay Ward. I really thought he flashed down the stretch of the 2025 season. Are the Vikings going to be comfortable playing him near the line of scrimmage or in the deep half? That's more of a question I wonder. I'd expect Jacoby Thomas definitely to factor in the early portions of this season on the back end. Josh Metellus is probably better closer to the line of scrimmage, but he can play in the back end. And then Theo Jackson, we'll just have to kind of see and evaluate that over the summer and the fall. But definitely, it definitely feels like just like at a lot of positions on defense and really throughout the roster, but definitely on defense, you're betting on this coaching staff to figure out a way. And to their credit, they have figured out a lot of ways over the past few years to where it's understandable to make those types of bets. But I say this every time. If you listen to the show, you'll know this. You know this is what I say. When I covered baseball, the more ifs you had in the lineup of if the 3-hitter hits well, if the 5-hitter is on, if the 7th hitter, the more ifs you got, the more you're really hoping and the more reliable it kind of feels. So, that's, we'll have to evaluate. But I do like Jay Ward. I do think Jacoby Thomas can contribute in the immediate, and then Harrison Smith, from everything I understand, it's still up in the air, and I don't really expect a resolution that soon with that either. So that'll do it for episode 166. Like I said at the top, we will be back Thursday night with an immediate reaction podcast of the schedule that will be released. I like the schedule release. Yeah, it's silly that you got announcements for announcements, but I don't know, it structures the whole fall. It gives you a feel. You get to start talking about it. Not going to complain about that. But yeah, that'll be Thursday night, and looking forward to our guest for that show. Thank you guys for being here. The show is presented by First Resource Bank. It's sponsored by ProMN Athletics, which is lifting the tide of development of youth football here in Minnesota. Unreal, the clothing brand, which I've got on in the lower half. Probably not going to show that on camera. Nobody needs that. Yeah, thank you guys for being here, and we will talk to you very, very soon.